welcome back everyone to the Corporate Sustainability Education channel. We are your weekly education podcast and we are powered by the Southern Sustainability Partnership and we stream every Friday. Now in this podcast, we wanted to take you on a journey with a case study, and to do so, we're talking to a company who have transitioned from a traditional fleet of vehicles to electric and hybrid alternatives. Now, to share this transition, we have invited Steve Chick, who is branch manager of a company called Wessex Rope and Packaging. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a background about this company. They haven't transitioned to a more modern way of vehicles today because they themselves are a new-ish company. Far from it, they've been trading for more than 30 years. Now, they have facilities in both Gillingham and Poole in the county of Dorset, England, and they've earned themselves the outstanding reputation for the supply of ropes, ratchet straps, lifting slings, load nets, sports nets, tarpaulins, and packaging. So it's fair to say this is a real meaty offering that this company has. And they've not only gone down the route of, electric and hybrid vehicles, they wanted to be responsible for their own destiny, and so they put in their own vehicle charging point, which is when we found out about what the company were doing, and we just had to introduce them to you. So Steve, welcome, and thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
No problem. Good morning.
Steve, I think it's fair to say, after trading for 30 years, it would have been so much easier just to have gone down the route you've always gone down. So we've got to ask, what was the catalyst that started you on the journey of change?
Um, it's kind of there's two elements, I guess, to this. I mean, although Wessex Rope and Packaging have been trading for 30 years, 2 years or just over 2 years ago, the company was taken over by Southwest Packaging, which is the Gillingham part of the operation. And Southwest Packaging in Gillingham, they're a corrugated manufacturer. They make corrugated packaging, corrugated boxes. And obviously, in the packaging world, I mean, the corrugated industry is a very sustainable industry. I mean, the material itself is very environmental, or as environmentally friendly as it gets, pretty much. It's typically 70 to 90% recycled material. And where there is virgin material in corrugated board, it all comes from FSC accredited sustainable sources. So the actual product that Southwest Packaging are selling, that they kind of trade very much on the environmentally friendly aspect of that kind of packaging. A lot of their customers are very eco-aware companies. A large cosmetics company based in Poole, another nationally recognized cosmetics company based in Gillingham, and quite a lot of other. We deal also with a lot of microbreweries and craft beer breweries, and those guys also tend to be very aware of their environmental impact and looking to source sustainable alternatives to traditional packaging. So that's where Southwest come in from the point of view of the corrugated. And then from my personal point of view, I've always mainly sort of been very aware of my impact on the environment and trying to minimize that, trying to sort of use sort of sustainable products where possible, and trying to minimize my impact on the planet. I've been a member of the Green Party for quite a few years now, so it kind of all fits together with sort of the Southwest Packaging ethos and my own personal sort of values. It all kind of gelled together, and I've got to mention it because people who watch this will mention it. There's also financial benefits of using plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles.
Yeah, isn't it great to know so many times when we talk about the solutions that take you on a more sustainable road, there are cost savings. And that's why we tell business, you need to be looking at this because, it can make financial benefit to do so. So I have to ask yourself and the team that were going to be driving these vehicles, were there any reservations before you took this step, and what ultimately convinced you?
I mean, my decision was probably taken a year ago. That's one thing I will sort of say at the start, because obviously technology is moving all the time. So kind of my experience is based on going back 12 months. I think the main concern is the main concern with most people. It's range anxiety, isn't it? It's you know, am I going to get stuck somewhere halfway up the M1, sitting drinking coffee, waiting for my car to charge, you know, and looking at my watch, trying to get to a meeting and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the sort of anxiety we had, and that's kind of what steered us down the route of the plug-in hybrid, because it means that if you're running late and you absolutely have to get somewhere, then you've always got the fallback of in my case, a petrol engine that can do the job when the battery goes flat. I mean, my vehicle does about, I think, 35. The claimed from VW is 36 miles on a full charge of pure electric driving, but that varies wildly, and I think probably 30 on a good day and about 25 on a particularly cold day in the winter, because that does affect the battery life. The other thing that concerned us slightly was obviously the availability of charge points at that point, and I think still now, actually, it's not as easy to charge. My thing is that I've always said it needs to be as easy to charge an electric vehicle as it is to fuel a petrol or diesel vehicle. At the moment, I still think that technology is not quite there. There are lots of different suppliers when it comes to motorway service areas and shopping centres, and you need to have the app for each supplier, or a card with a QR code on it, or an account set up. It's not as easy. I think where we need to get to is where charge points are a case of just going in with your debit card, credit card, swiping it, plugging the charger in. We need to get to it being as easy as fueling.
You know, you're leading the march on this because, you know, it's like with anything, we need companies and individuals to be doing this, because the more that that's done, the more the infrastructure will come in. You know, we have to have one without the other, really.
Yeah.
So, and that is coming. And I was reading an article the other day about a company who have just opened the first pure electric service station, forecourt, you know, which I think is great. And obviously that, you know, it's going to start rolling out around the country, absolutely. But they're trialing that one, and I think it's great. So just before we move on, I think it might be an idea just to got a general idea of what the vehicles are used for that are electric and hybrid.
Okay, so at the moment, the business has now, we've transitioned all of our company cars, so the reps vehicles, branch managers, anybody that has to go and see customers. So it's actually the cars that at the moment we've switched over. The majority of them are plug-in hybrids, because they were done last year. At that point, full electric vehicles with reasonable range were still pretty expensive compared to the plug-in hybrids. I mean, we were talking sort of the Jaguars and the Teslas that were sort of 80, 90, 100,000 pounds, you know, and even trying to get those on lease was nigh on impossible at that point. So we at that point we went with the plug-in hybrid. We have now got our first full electric vehicle in the fleet now. One of our managers has just taken delivery of a Tesla, because the Model S, obviously, the price has come down. So the range has improved, the price has come down, and so I've no doubt that when my car in 2 years' time comes for renewal, that it will go full electric, because I think the technology in the last 12 months has moved on terrifically.
Well, promise me if you get a Tesla, Steve, that I can come and see you. You can I've been in a Tesla once as a passenger, and it was an experience that
Yeah.
I love. And one day I'll get myself a Tesla, but promise me that.
Yeah.
In terms of mileage, I know we've had this conversation, and with the different things that are happening within the company, I think it's a little bit difficult just to say right now because I threw this question at you. But if anybody would like Steve to drill down a little bit more into any of that for you, then please do contact us at the on the channel, and we'll ask Steve that question for you, and we'll definitely get back to you. So, Steve, I think next question would be a good idea to find out what actual vehicles you have in your fleet. You did allude to VW.
Yes, I mean, the fleet itself is, I mean, we've only got the one vehicle in pool, which is my company car, which is a VW Passat GTE Estate. And then my managing director's got a very nice BMW X5 plug-in hybrid. So we've just got the Tesla, and our reps have got mainly the BMW 330e plug-in hybrid, which have been less of a success, I would say, the BMW 3 Series, because they're rear-wheel drive and they have batteries in the rear end of them. The boots are absolutely tiny on those. And at the time, BMW didn't supply an estate touring version of that vehicle, so they've not really. It's not BMW's fault as such. The vehicles it's the vehicles that would have done the job weren't available at the time when those contracts came up for renewal. And I know several reps I've met since I've given lifts to different places, have jumped in the Passat, and oh, we've got loads of room in here, haven't you? So so yeah, and I wanted an estate car because I quite often, because I go out and visit customers, I quite often, if we've got an order to go somewhere and I think, oh, I haven't seen them for a while, I'll chuck the order in my car and take it out in the car. So I wanted an estate so that I got room to put, packaging, rolls of bubble wrap, boxes of ratchet straps or whatever it was in the back of the car to go and take that with me when I go to visit customers.
Have any of your customers noticed that you've gone down that route? Have they noticed the vehicle driving?
It's quite interesting, actually. I mean, nobody's noticed when I've gone to see them too much, because they don't tend to see you arrive. You tend to park up and go into reception. What I do, though, is I do leave the car plugged in outside our office in Poole, even when it's fully charged. I just leave it on. I plug it in the morning when I get there. And if I don't go out anywhere in the daytime to visit anybody, if I'm in the office all day, I just leave it plugged in outside, because once it's fully charged anyway, and the charger cuts out. But that's caused a lot of interest, a lot of people coming in asking questions about it. Is it full electric? Is it hybrid? How have you found it? Yeah, all kinds of conversations with customers and suppliers. Actually, several sort of suppliers have been in and asked me about it as well.
Yeah, I think that it's great when they can see somebody physically doing this, so they know that they can ask you and they'll get a real story, rather than, I think it can be quite intimidating going into a showroom. Which kind of leads me on to my next question, really. Did you guys do your own research as to which options you were going to have, or was that led very much by the salesman?
To be honest, the actual buying or the leasing of the vehicle, then the getting of the vehicle, we have a guy in Gillingham that deals with all of that. I would say he's a fleet manager, but he's the fleet manager. He's the IT manager. He's kind of the go-to guy for sorting out anything, really. So whenever anybody needs a new car, he goes away and does the deal, does the research. I had a chat with him initially, he sort of gauged kind of what I was looking for. I said I prefer an estate car because of the delivery thing. I can use it as almost like an extra van. Very nice van with aircon and heated seats, but but it was an extra van, and he kind of asked me what cars I liked, what I didn't, and yeah, and then he sort of kind of went away and came back with a short list, and we had a chat, and we kind of narrowed it down. And then once I sort of said, well, this would be my first preference, his would be my second preference. He then went away to see what deals he could get.
Oh, that's interesting. Everybody needs a member of their team like that, don't they? They go to. We need
Yes.
one. I've always been interested in knowing whether somebody walks into a forecourt, a sales showroom, sorry, and they say, I want to see your electric or your hybrid vehicles. And I'm really interested to know whether they are taken to see those and that's it, and they can make the decision or not, or whether they say, oh, while you're here, let's just go and look at the more traditional vehicles, because I've worked in other industry sectors whereby the salesmen know what the salesmen know and they like to sort of push that route. So
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
always been an intriguing question in my mind as to how that happens. And I suppose if you flip it on its head, I wonder if you go in there for a traditional diesel or petrol vehicle, whether they say, before you go, would you just like to check out our electric or hybrid solutions? And I can, yeah, and I do know that that hasn't happened on the cases where I've asked anyway.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've worked in sales myself, and you know, there is always this whole thing that the salesman will take the path of least resistance. And like you said, it's easier to, if you know all the facts and figures. It's a bit like I said to you about the corrugated. If I know all the facts and figures about, you know, the sustainability, the recycled material, it's easy to go in and do that. Whereas a new material, you may not be as confident selling that. This vehicle, obviously, I mean, like I said, our guy sorted the car for me, so I didn't actually do the deal as such or go to a dealership to do the deal. But I will say that another local company I'll give a shout out to is Breeze Volkswagen, because now then, when I originally started with the company, there was talk of us sorting out a company car. And so I did a bit of research, and I actually went into Breeze Volkswagen to look at another Passat or Golf type car. And the guy in the show, the salesman in the showroom, actually said to me, "Have you thought about a plug-in hybrid?" And actually took me over to the GTE. So that was something that I thought was quite refreshing, really, that they were actually putting that, the sales guys were behind it and they were trying to push it.
That's really interesting, and actually we got our vehicles from there. So I will have a chat with them and say that delighted that they are going, that they are pushing them as
Yeah.
well. So thank you for pointing that out, because we do speak to them from time to time. Before we move on, I know you're not a vehicle expert, Steve, and we haven't asked you to be a vehicle expert here. We want real, we're just looking for sort of a real story, really. But could you just give us a little bit of an idea of the difference between an electric and a hybrid vehicle? Because some people might not know.
Well, I mean, my vehicle, for example, is a plug-in hybrid. So I have a charge point at work, and I also have a charger which plugs in on a 3-pin plug that I can use at home. It's basically an electric. It's a petrol vehicle. It's a 1.4 turbocharged petrol engine VW Passat, which also has an electric motor that drives the gearbox as well. So you can use it in full electric mode, which, as I said earlier, on a full charge will give you 30-ish miles in full electric, and the engine never cuts in. You can use it in hybrid mode, put it into hybrid mode, and the vehicle will decide when to use electric power, when to use the petrol engine. And that tends to be, when you're around town at low speed, you'll be using electric. And then when you get out of town and you accelerate a bit more, the petrol engine will cut in. It's not always as cut and dried as that. Sometimes you can be cruising along at 60 mile an hour and look down and you'll be on electric. And that's the other key thing as well, is that you do have to actually look down to see if the rev counter is up, to know whether you're on petrol or electric. The transition between the two is absolutely seamless. So yeah, that's kind of the plug-in hybrid side of it. Obviously the full electric, I know there's arguments about whether they are, but it's a zero emission basically, isn't it? Once it's charged, burning any fossil fuels. And yeah, I mean, the batteries tend to be a lot bigger. They take longer to charge, obviously, as well, because the batteries are bigger, but they tend to use faster chargers.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that it's seamless, because I did wonder whether you were aware of whether you were driving using the electric, or whether you kicked into the petrol side of things. So it's interesting that you say that, and I guess it's good that it's seamless rather than you having to worry about it. So another interesting question, I think, for our listeners would be: did you go down the route of buying these vehicles outright, or did you lease them?
Well, all of our vehicles are leased. I mean, it tends to be the way that our parent company likes to operate anyway with vehicles. But particularly in this case, we felt that because the technology was still evolving, nobody knows exactly how far it's going to go. Nobody knows what the resale values are going to be after 3 years. We kind of thought we know what our costs are. Let's just lease while because it's evolving so quickly. Like I said, if I was making the decision now, I mean, literally it was about a year ago that we made the decision and we chose the car and everything, because I think we made the decision in June and I had the car delivered to the office in August. But if we were making that decision now, I would probably go full electric, because there are vehicles now in the right price range with the right electric range, electric range to do the job that I need it to do. But last year it was a little bit, it was sort of 50-50, and so we sort of erred on the side of caution and went with the plug-in hybrid. But I do think the full electric technology for most people now, I would imagine, I mean, if you're a rep doing 50, 60,000 a year, well, mind you, no one's doing that at the moment, are they? So, but yeah, it's definitely moving on. So yeah, lease was kind of what we felt was the best option.
Yeah, I think it's a good point that you've made. Thank you for that, that you're now prepared to go fully electric. I think that's another conversation that, you know, we should have, in that, you know, you're that confident about the way things are with those technologies now. And I think lease, I think, is always a good idea for businesses. And with the work that we're doing, we're looking very much at the circular economy, where I think people will go away from full ownership of most things, with the onus going back onto the manufacturer to actually take that product back at the end of life, and, you know, use those resources to put back into either the new vehicles, or whatever that might be, washing machine or whatever. So I think, you know, getting used to that sort of lease and not full ownership of something is a really good idea. So I have to ask you, the team of your people that were going to be using these vehicles, how did they receive the news that they were going to have these vehicles, and was there any pushback at all?
Not, I wouldn't say pushback as such. I do work with two guys who are, for want of a better phrase, petrol heads. Um, they both into motorsport and rallying, and they both got rally cars, and they always have been. And the kind of, you know, it's not a proper car, is it? Doesn't sound like a proper car, does it? So, I mean, to be fair, the company car that I've got, that, I mean, they are able to use it. I mean, it's, you know, they can jump in and use it, and they have driven it. It is primarily, you know, my company car, but if we need to use it, they can jump in and use it. So initially, they called it my toy car, my Scalextric car. I pull up in the morning and they would just shake their heads and say, it doesn't sound like a proper car. But the one thing that's kind of won them over is there is a mode on the Passat GTE, which is, there's a button which says GTE on it. And if you press the GTE button, it gives you full electric and petrol power at the same time, which means you get about 220 brake horsepower or something. I mean, I find it really useful in areas like Dorset, if you're stuck behind something and you've only got a short straight to get past a tractor or something slow moving. I just press the button and it does just zip past, and then you can switch it off again. So I think once they got in and did that, because the electric motor overcomes the turbo lag. So normally with a turbocharged engine, you hit the accelerator, there's a little bit of a lag, and then it goes. But the electric overcomes that. So as soon as you hit the accelerator, it just goes. So I think that kind of won them over a bit. They're still a little bit, you know, dismissive, but you know, I'm educating them. You know, I keep calling them dinosaurs. So
I like the way you're getting your own back, Steve. And I guess in a way, they're never going to actually admit that to you, are they? You know, if they have sort of come around to your way of thinking, you're probably
right,
the last to know about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You did touch on range anxiety, and I think that's a term that has entered into our vocabulary that we probably never had before. And I speak to a lot of people about these vehicles, and that's the one thing they say. But, you know, you really do have to take into account how many miles do most of us actually do in one day, and you'd be surprised. And I also think that, you know, if I've got a petrol or a diesel vehicle, at some point it's going to stop unless I actually have a bit of range anxiety there.
Yeah.
I mean, everything needs to stop and be powered. So when it comes to your financial incentives, was there anything out there for you that you could access for the vehicles that would help you, funding or specific finance around that? And when you looked at the vehicle charging point, was there any help from the government or anything around that as well?
I mean, kind of, there were two major upsides. I mean, one from a personal point of view is my Passat at the moment. Most of my friends think it's hilarious because it's actually a carbon copy of my old company car, even the same color. You wouldn't, I mean, some people don't even know I've changed car because it is the same color as my old Passat estate from my previous job. And so they kind of look at that. But I mean, if you sat down and compared what I was paying in company car tax on my old Passat, I'm probably paying about 30% of what I was paying on my old company car now. Literally, yeah, it's about that kind of going from a turbo diesel Passat estate to a plug-in hybrid Passat estate. I'm paying about 30% of what I was previously paying in company car tax. So the saving there is significant. Obviously, you know, I get to keep more of my salary, which is always nice. And with regards to the charging point, then yeah, we qualified for the OLEV grant from the government, which was £350 towards the cost of the charge point, which was again helpful. I mean, it's still, you know, there's still a cost involved, but at least it's something, you know. If the government are giving free money away, it'd be rude not to take it, wouldn't it, really?
Absolutely. They are trying to incentivize. So yes, take advantage of it whilst it's still
Yeah.
there. They don't last forever, so start looking at it now so that you can, you know, take advantage of it as well. So with regard to the vehicle charger itself, what type of product did you end up with, and how does it work?
So we went with the Pod Point charger.
Yeah.
We had that installed. We went with that after I think I initially, when we first ordered the car, I got in contact with you to say, help, where do I get a charge point? And you put me in touch with Wessex Eco Energy in Dorchester. And those guys were great, actually. They were really helpful. They came out, they did like a site survey to see where our electrics were, where we could put the charge point to sort of maximize the sort of usefulness of it then in regards to our parking. And they also then asked me what vehicle I was getting so that they could then look at the different charging points that were available for that vehicle and which would be most suitable. The Passat plug-in hybrid, it's limited to, I never know the right language to use. I'm not an electrician, but I think it's 7 kilowatt hours or something like that. It's limited, so you can plug a fast charger in there, but it will only ever charge at 7 kilowatt hours. It won't use the full capacity of a charger like that. So the Pod Point was kind of what they identified as the most suitable for our needs, basically. And Wessex Eco Energy, again, I've got to give them another shout out because they even helped me fill out the application for the OLEV grant. So yeah, if you're thinking of going down this route, definitely recommend Wessex Eco Energy. They're really helpful guys.
I know, who wants to fill out forms? It's my pet hate, I must admit. Never make them easy, do they?
No, definitely not.
So if you had a customer or somebody come along for a meeting at your building, would they possibly be able to plug their own vehicle in, or is it very specific to certain types of vehicles?
Now, this is where there might be a gap in my knowledge. I think, I mean, it's a Type 2 charger. So I think as long as they've got that kind of connection, I mean, the cable is changeable anyway. It's not a fixed cable. So I have a cable in the boot in my car, which I plug it either end in, one end into the wall, one end into the car. So as far as I'm aware, it fits most vehicles. And we've positioned it in such a way that we've got like 5 parking spaces outside our office. We've positioned it in such a way that with an average length of charging cable, I think we can access 3 of the parking bays. Obviously, we can only have one vehicle plugged in at a time. It's only got one outlet. But what I tend to do is if like my MD or one of the reps is coming down and they want to charge, then I just unplug my car for a bit and let them plug in, you know, and that what seems to work quite well. I mean, at the moment, I guess we are still in quite early days and sort of one outlet is sufficient, but I dare say that there will come a time where we'll need more outlets.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say that you have got a solution there that is, you know, is quite flexible for you, really. So that's fantastic. And can you just say again how long it takes for your vehicle to charge at the Pod Point?
My particular vehicle, it's normally about 3 hours. It's really clever, actually. I get an app on my phone, and I get in the morning. I plug the vehicle in, and I go up in the office and work away. And then normally about 11 o'clock, I get a ding on my phone, and it's a message from my car to say it's now fully charged. So that and the guys in the office again, you know, the guys that are the real skeptics take the mickey again and say, oh, he's talking to you again. But yeah, the other thing that they were a bit envious of, though, is in the winter, if you leave it plugged in at 4:45, you can actually go onto the app and turn on the heating and the heated seats. So that when you get into it, it's really lovely and cozy.
Oh, that's fantastic, Steve. I know that obviously there are faster chargers available, it's fair to say. So it's really a case of, like you've done, is looking at the type of vehicle you've got, maybe how many vehicles you might have, and looking at, you know, the right solution for you. But there are plenty on the market, and the companies like the one that you used, obviously, they have a lot of advice to offer. So I think, you know, just don't try to do everything or all the research yourself. Talk to the experts. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So if a company is able to add solar to their roof, for example, you know, the ultimate, generate your own electricity, would you consider this as an investment worth considering if you're going down the route of electric vehicles and hybrid?
I know we've just our head office up in Gillingham have just bought new premises, and that is something that they are currently looking into. The building we're in Poole at the moment is not our own building. We got permission for the charging point. Obviously, solar panels might be a tougher sell to the landlord. But yeah, so we're looking to do what we can where we can. Yeah.
Yeah, it surprises me in a way, really, with landlords where they're not so receptive to it, because, you know, if the people that are renting from them, the company that are renting from them, move on, they get the benefit of the best, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the electricity bills in there are going to be so much better, half,
Yeah.
in fact, you know, compared to. But anyway, I just think it's all about education. Times will change, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
Steve,
It's little by little, isn't it? Really, it's kind of.
yeah, it is. It's companies like yours asking the question or whatever, you know, and
Yeah.
eventually the change will come. So, have you carried out, or anyone within the company carried out, any analysis really in the difference it's costing you to run one against the other now?
I haven't done any detailed analysis. And believe me, if I could, I would have done, because I love a spreadsheet. I am every company I've worked at, I've been known as the man with a spreadsheet for every occasion. But I am very analytical by nature, so I love data and to look at facts and figures and work those kinds of things out. It's been difficult to kind of do any real comparisons, because obviously the last 12 months has just been unprecedented. Half of our reps have been furloughed. The ones that haven't been furloughed haven't been visiting customers, they've been working from home, so mileages haven't been realistic, and so we don't really have too much real world sort of data to go on. The only thing I will say is, obviously, I've done my own kind of rough research, and I kind of before this I had a Vauxhall Astra turbo diesel, which is actually a van that I was using for work, and I was filling that up pretty much every week. And the Passat now I'm fueling every 3 weeks. Now the Passat is telling me that I went on. I actually knew I was doing this interview. I went on, and there's all kinds of data on the onboard computer on the car, and it's telling me all kinds of ridiculous things. I think VW claim it can do 250 miles per gallon, but I think that's based on lots of short journeys and charging the battery every time you're going to make a journey. But I will say that I think I'm getting somewhere in the region of 90 to 100 miles per gallon equivalent with the electric and petrol combined. So yeah, and I think like a full charge on the Passat costs about £1. So, you know, you're getting 30 odd miles for £1. It's not bad, is it?
Well, I mean, what can you say? It speaks for itself, doesn't it, really?
Well,
It's incredible.
exactly. And if I'm spending all day at the office and not going anywhere else, I can charge at the office, and literally I can do my commute to and from the office on electric. So I'm not burning any fossil fuels, polluting any, you know, the people of Poole, you know, should be grateful that I'm not polluting their atmosphere. So yeah, I'm really sold on it. I really am. It's been a great move. I did have reservations, as I've said, but you know, it's been a really like I say, I know my only regret now is I'm going to have to wait 2 years for the lease to run out before I can go full electric.
Oh, that's great. I mean, the last question I think, Steve, that I'll ask you is, how do you feel about the driving experience compared to other vehicles you've obviously driven? How do you feel about that?
I- it's very similar to driving my old Passat. You know, like I said, the transition between petrol and electric is, as I've said, seamless. You wouldn't know really. You just drive it like any other car. The only thing that does happen now, it does change your mindset. There is a feature on the Passat where you can adjust the amount of regeneration that you get when braking. So when you brake, when you go downhill, you can kind of let off the throttle, and the car will actually use regenerative braking to put power back into the battery, and you can adjust how much that is. So I mean, in town, if you're out on the open road and going down a big hill, you can put it into a higher regenerative mode, and it changes your whole mindset, because you actually now it's almost like a computer game to see the actual battery life go up by 1 mile now. It's like a win, you know. It's and it's not, you know, it's not been plugged in, it's not doing anything, it's just freewheeling down a hill and it's charging itself.
So come on, all you petrol heads, you can have a new computer game instead.
I've been a petrol head in the past. You know, I've had those kind of, you know, GTIs and XR3. Well, XR3is, that dates me, doesn't it? That's how old I am. I've had those cars, and I've been into motorsport. You know, but equally, I think motorsport is you know, these guys that I work with that are into the rallying. You know, they're starting to get hybrid rally cars now. They're starting to have regenerative braking and boost systems based on regenerative braking. And there are actually some full electric series now. I mean, you've got the Formula E,
Yeah,
which is the full electric version of the Formula One, and I think, you know, the same is going to happen. It's going to happen. These guys that take the mickey out of my car at the moment are going to have to, you know, buy into it, because it is coming, and you know, I do believe that you're not going to stop it, and it is the future.
yes. And I think for companies, I'm sure there's going to be penalties coming their way if they don't try to embrace, you know, the new technologies that are coming out there.
Mm.
So, Steve, that has been an absolutely invaluable insight into the real life of a company like yours, with all your experience moving into this direction. And so we're so delighted to have been able to bring it to our channel listeners. Thank you.
No problem.
We have, we will add a link to Steve's company's website to the right of the video, so you can find out a lot more about what they do. Obviously, they got some incredible products that they deliver. So if you're looking, and I know that a lot of our channel followers are looking for more responsible companies to buy from, then this is definitely one that you need to be looking at. We also will be having an EV experience zone at the big Sustainability Expo at St Mary's Stadium, Southampton, on the 28th of October. You can find out all about the different vehicles there. You can also speak to vehicle owners, and you can go out for test drives. So, you know, why not take that soft approach really to looking at a move towards these vehicles. And in the meantime, we thank you very much for watching or listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.